Hello and welcome to Hardware Intel, the in-ear edition, the podcast from UAP exploring how hardware can help shape our future. From households to large-scale industrial, we'll be discussing a wide range of topics, with expert insight from within the building industry and thoughtful opinions about how hardware is advancing communities all around the world.
In the environmentally ideal world, we would recycle and upcycle and by using old hardware and giving them a new life.
Yes, there might be a cost initially to invest in making sustainable products and saving the environment, but longer term it always pays dividends.
I'm Sian, Astley, a TV presenter and property expert, and I'm fascinated by the impact that good hardware solutions can have on all of our lives. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about using sustainable hardware in modern builds for a much greener world. Joining me are Bonnie Hodson, UAP's Chief Financial Officer, and Kamila Kasperowicz, one of the Marketing Directors at UAP. Welcome to Hardware Intel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So welcome Bonnie, welcome Kamila, welcome ladies. Tell me a little bit about what you do at UAP. Would you like to start, Bonnie?
Thanks. So I've been at UAP 2 years now, and I'm Chief Financial Officer here. So it's quite a wide-ranging role, also incorporates HR and IT. And in the 2 years we've been here, we've grown quite a lot. We have acquired 2 businesses and also set up an own corporation in America. So it's busy.
So you're the lady in charge of the purse strings then?
I certainly am.
Excellent. You keep them all and you keep them all in check.
Oh yes.
Perfect. And what about you, Kamila? What is your role?
I'm a marketing director at the moment. I've started with UAP in 2013, so I'm here 7 years now. I've started as a graphic designer, then I've been promoted to marketing manager, and now I've been appointed a director role, which I'm very pleased with, and it brings a lot of challenges, but I love it.
So Kamila, how do buildings affect the environment?
The construction and renovation of buildings uses precious natural resources. Manufacturers of door hardware like us can ensure this is done in a way so not adversely affect the environment. When in use, buildings are responsible for a significant proportion of carbon emissions. Energy used in the construction and use of our homes and other buildings accounts for around half of the UK's total carbon dioxide emissions, which under the Climate Change Act from 2008, I think, we have a legally binding target to reduce those emissions by at least 80% by 2050. So, in fact, globally is a similar picture. Buildings account for around 35% of resources, 40% of energy use. We consume loads of world drinkable water and produce almost 40% of global carbon emissions. So the numbers are huge, and there is always, place to do more.
We can't get out of that, can we? Because we need buildings and we need to furnish them with hardware and with everything. We need to build them and we need to live in them and we need to keep them going so they're enjoyable to be in. But that all comes at a cost. You've touched a little bit there on the effect that businesses can have on the environment. So what does UAP do to help the environment, to help make a greener world? Because you are selling products, aren't you, to use in these buildings?
I think the main problem that affects the environment and contribute to global warming are greenhouse gases and the plastic waste, single-use plastic waste. Every individual, household and business organization, or really anything that uses and produces resources, has a carbon footprint. This is the global greenhouse gas emission produced and amount of energy used. The approximate carbon footprint on your household or any business can be calculated using a carbon footprint calculator. In fact, me and Bonnie have calculated our carbon footprint on the WWF website a while ago, which was very eye-opening.
You mean your carbon footprints at home?
Yes.
Right,
yeah. So it was very interesting to see and check what really contribute to this. So I would recommend to everyone to check it.
And when you did that, when you calculated your footprints at home, did it then open your eyes to just how great a footprint UAP as a business would have?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's for both. It was for myself to see what I can reduce, because it also gives you ways how you can reduce it. But also it's eye-opening to see, on the businesses which are dealing with the large-scale projects, how this can affect environment and what carbon footprint can this make.
And what are your thoughts on that, Bonnie?
Well, I totally agree. It was quite eye-opening when we did the carbon footprint, and I don't think I'd appreciated what things I did that had an impact on the carbon footprint, and that's made me reassess certain things in my household. And we're also doing that in our business at UAP, but businesses currently use between 15,000 to 25,000 kilowatts of energy every year, and that is more than 4 times the average household, so businesses can have a real impact on the environment.
So what is UAP actually doing then to help build this greener world?
We are energy saving as a business, so we have instructed solar panels, we have lower energy electricals such as eco light bulbs. We've properly insulated all our buildings so that we retain as much heat as possible. And this means that we use about a third of the average business energy usage. On top of that, all our products are sourced sustainably. One of our main kind of products is metal, obviously, in the door hardware business. We ensure that these are sourced sustainably so that our products aren't damaging to the earth. And on top of that, we also have a strong culture of reuse and recycle, and we like to be resourceful where we can. So, for example, we shred all our packaging and use it to infill our packaging to our customers, and we also recycle all our 3D printing products so we can reuse it again and again.
Now, you are the Chief Financial Officer, so keep the lady keeping the eye on the pennies. And I'm guessing that these kind of decisions for a business, they're expensive, aren't they? But they're worth it.
I think definitely. First of all, the payback is quite quick. So, for example, our energy bills now are only £100 a month or less than, which is less than the average household on some occasions. And also, we take our position in the business seriously. We're just here on this planet for a short time, so we've got to look after it.
And do all the employees buy into this? Is this something that they've been quite passionate about as well? Because people generally are, aren't they? People are changing in their mentality on a day-by-day basis.
I'd say that everybody has a keenness and a responsibility to buy into this. You can see it with the way that we recycle in the business, and it's always like, who's left this light on? So there's always that culture there. So it's
quite
really
right
good to see. Yes.
Quite right too. For those of us old enough to remember, it's like the 70s when there were stickers everywhere telling you to turn the lights off. And actually that was, about then it was about saving money, but now it's about something a little bit more important. So what's the door hardware industry doing to combat the plastic problem? This is something that you touched on earlier, Kamila.
To be honest, not much at the moment, and there is plenty that can be done. Surveys have found that consumers today are actually buying sustainably marketed products, not just saying they want them. So the market is filled with sustainable products, and there is a higher risk of being called out for not walking the walk, really. There are some huge advantages of being more sustainable, which in our opinion can benefit door hardware industry and combat the plastic problem. There are things like it can increase revenue by providing a climate leadership. By providing climate leadership, we encourage employees to create new products and services. It can also reduce the cost, which Bonnie touched on that, by not using plastic, single-use plastic, and replace it with more sustainable paper, for example, for our packaging and the fillers. By changing behavior on high emission activities like energy use and business travel, that can reduce a lot of cost also. It can also engage stakeholders by motivating and retaining staff, by demonstrating to investors that we are measuring, disclosing and managing climate risk. it can also mitigate risk of possible future regulation that taxes carbon consumption, because we don't know what the future will bring. But all those steps can ensure we are going into the right direction.
And you used a really important phrase there right at the start, which is leading from the front. Do you feel that UAP are doing that within your industry?
I believe so. And we want to be perceived at once with ones who does that, because it's really, really important for us to talk this message, to give this message to our customers, to our staff, to everyone, really.
Are you with that, Bonnie? Do you feel like UAP are doing things differently?
Oh, absolutely. It's really, I feel quite proud about how we are as a business, taking this step and treating it seriously, and also, enjoying the process as well.
How important is a good employee well-being when trying to convince them to buy into those ethical changes within the company? We talked a little bit about that earlier, but how important is that to UAP as a company, their employees' well-being?
Employee well-being is a big problem across all industries, and especially these days, we've got overworking, we've got poor work-life balance, unhealthy eating, sedentary lifestyles. So people just get stressed and become unwell. So we're looking to try and build our employee wellbeing, and we've done a lot of initiatives already to try and support our staff, and also we're bringing in new ideas and resources to help that.
Caring about your staff's well-being is so critical, because if people aren't feeling well in themselves and aren't happy in themselves, they're not really going to be that interested in what's going on in the wider world and the planet, are they? It has to kind of start from within, in the culture of the company, to have happy staff with good, a good attitude coming to work, and then they'll be able to look at the wider picture.
Exactly that, and I think we're trying to do a few more fun things as well in the company to try and encourage that. So, for example, we have started yoga sessions on lunchtimes, which have been proved to be very popular. Myself and Kamila are regular yogis. And we find that really beneficial, just to have a break from work and also to stretch, because it can be very sedentary when you're office space as well. You can find that you get very stiff, so it's lovely just to have that breakaway and to have some time with your colleagues in a kind of non-work environment.
So what does the future look like for the door hardware industry, Kamila?
I think the future is going towards a smart hardware for sure, but conventional materials will still be in use, and in the environmentally ideal world, we would recycle and upcycle, and by using old hardware and giving them a new life. It's not always possible, in which case we can make sure our hardware at least comes from a sustainable source. It comes from a sustainable source, it's ethically made, as this has also a massive impact on the environment and doesn't exploit people and resources. Not everyone can shop 100% sustainable, and that's fine, as sustainability has its flaws also, like, greenwashing, corporate greenwashing, stuff like that.
What is corporate greenwashing? Talk me through that.
Oh yeah, it started in 1960s. Is a marketing practice that leads customers to believe that the company's product are more eco-friendly than they actually are. Mm-hmm. When companies display words like conscious, sustainable, or ethical on their ads, but really it has nothing to do with it. But companies are most capable to make positive changes due to collective efforts like UAP. If with our collective efforts, I believe we can make much more positive changes in the future.
Do you think that consumers are much more wise these days to greenwashing then, and can actually do their own investigations and find out actually which companies are really walking the walk?
Yeah, definitely. Consumers those days are very, very conscious, and it's also very easy to call someone on a greenwashing. It's very easy to check, to research, and get the facts straight. So there are companies, currently, which are still using this practice of greenwashing, and they are called on it. And at UAP we're very conscious about it, and we are making sure everything, as much as possible, it's done correctly.
And there's an impact on the bottom line of a company, isn't there, Bonnie? I'm going to throw a little bit of a wildcard question in now. But there is that impact. So how do you balance that as a business?
I think, again, as a business, yes, there might be a cost initially to investing in making sustainable products and saving the environment, but longer term, it always pays dividends, not just on the bottom line, but also for the world in a nutshell. So we don't want to leave a mark on the company, on the world. We want to do the best we can to be a profitable organisation, to continue to grow, but also to do it in a sustainable way.
And good financial decisions equal good marketing then, I'm guessing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we found it like working the sustainability theme. It works through all departments, so all departments are involved, like finances, marketing, warehousing, sales. It just brings us all together and give us a reason for a conversation and discussion.
Mm-hmm. So I think the companies then have a lot to learn, haven't they, from what UAP is doing? If they bring, you've got to be trying to achieve a common goal, and that brings the departments together, which is a good thing for a company, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it will start within the company, but then hopefully it will spread onto the whole world. Because as we touched on that before, like a company's got responsibility for the consumers, and it all starts from the top, really.
One thing that we haven't kind of mentioned is the quality of the products, because we talk about recycling and sustainability, but actually the quality of your products is really important, because if people are buying them and they're not repeatedly buying them, and if they can keep those products for a long time, that's good as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, of course. That's why we spent a lot of time and effort and money for bringing the specific ranges, like our NanoCost range, which is stainless steel range for people. So the products which have got a lifetime guarantee, the product which, if you will fit it on the door, it should not rust, it should not discolor, nothing will happen to it if maintained properly. So that's the type of sustainable hardware we are introducing, and we've already got them on the market.
Do you think customers are going back to buying those kind of products as opposed to the throwaway type?
Hopefully, yes. That would be, as I said, that would be ideal world if people would do it. I think everything starts also mentally in the people's head. But I think if we can convey this message, that would be our goal. That would be perfect.
Is that any good for the finances though, Bonnie? Because if people only buy the product once and they're not repeatedly buying it.
Well, hopefully there's a lot of customers out there, and hopefully we'll be able to spread the word that, if you go to see our products and you see that they are sustainably sourced and they are environmentally friendly, then hopefully you pick that product and then you'll recommend it to your friend or your colleague, and then that way we will continue to grow the business. As I say, we are a growing business and we continue to grow. So we don't see a negative side to this.
That's good, because it's about getting more customers as opposed to flogging more substandard products, which is a much better way of doing it. So what are UAP specifically doing to help change the industry's attitude towards single-use plastic and reducing carbon footprints?
Well, as we mentioned, we're obviously a door hardware company, so the main product we use is metals, which we source sustainably to make sure that we don't damage the earth. But single-use plastic is obviously the biggest problem, and starting with one of our brands, Intelligent Hardware, we're looking to cut out all plastic from the packaging. So with that, we've been using 100% biodegradable products, including cardboard and biopolymer, which is made from potato starch. And this is all to offset our carbon footprint. And we wanted to choose a scheme that allowed us to make a positive social and environmental contribution, because it, encompasses everybody. We worked closely with all our UK suppliers to make sure we offer eco-friendly warehousing solutions, and packaging and shipping is obviously a big part of that. So we have chosen DPD as a supplier who offers carbon neutral parcel deliveries. We also have other various schemes throughout the business. So we have green vehicle scheme effectively. So the majority of our company vehicles are eco-hybrids. We have a company car park which has several EV charging units, including those for guests. We've touched on the fact that we're grid neutral, so we've got over 50,000 square foot of footage of warehousing and office space, which is as grid neutral as possible because we've got all our solar panels to generate heat and energy so that we can keep warm in the winter months and cool in the summer months. We also have confirmed that we've offset all our emissions via a charity called plantatreetoday.org.
There's so much to think about, isn't there? The decision to be a more sustainable, a more green-minded company really does infiltrate every single aspect, doesn't it? And can do. There's an awful lot to think about. Do you have a separate department or team that thinks about all of this and plans it all?
No, not yet. Not at the moment. At the moment, it's myself and Bonnie really who does that.
I mean, it kind of answers my last question. My final question was, how easy is it for companies within the industry to go completely carbon neutral and help keep landfill waste to a minimum? It's not easy, is it? There are a lot of decisions.
No, yeah, it's not easy at all. In theory, a carbon neutral company doesn't produce any carbon emission, which, modern infrastructure, however, makes it nigh on impossible to run and operate that doesn't produce any carbon at all. So for those unavoidable carbon emission, a business can choose to offset the levels of it in a responsible way, like Bonnie mentioned in a previous question. The path to carbon neutrality looks different for every business. If you're leasing an office in a big block, you might have less opportunity to change things in your building. But if you're if you are a company with 10 employees, reducing your emission internally might be easier. But everything starts with the will, like we say. There is a will, there is a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got anything to add to that, Bonnie?
Yeah, so the theory behind being carbon neutral is that you've got to calculate your carbon footprint, which is something we touched on previously. And that is about reducing that to zero, which is obviously quite challenging. But there are 4 steps that we've kind of taken on to try and look at our carbon footprint and how we can reduce it. Ultimately, hopefully we can get to zero. So first of all, we've got to define what you're looking at. So we've got to decide whether to make your whole company or a particular product or service carbon neutral. Then you've got to look at how you're going to measure that. So we need to identify what data needs collecting, how you are going to start getting support from the business to collect that data, and then how to calculate your total emissions. Then over time you want to set a target so that you can look to put more internal reductions on carbon usage to reduce the amount of emissions, making it easier to get to that carbon neutral target. And then finally reduce, so start with internal emission reductions such as energy efficiency and waste, and then look at different projects, so changes to travel, obviously packaging, etc. So we're kind of breaking it down project by project and looking at different areas, and not just limiting it to products, but also what we can do in our environment, our working environment as well.
That's a beautifully succinct way to end this podcast, and really brilliant advice actually for any business listening who is thinking about following in the steps that UAP have taken. That's a great ending actually to a really interesting podcast. Thank you so much, Kamila. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
Thank you very much.
It's been really, really interesting to listen to, and thank you for your time today.